Welcome, everybody. Good morning, or I guess good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are in the world. I'm Emily Ho. I'm director of the Linus Institute. I'm also a faculty of nutrition in the College of Health. And I want to welcome you to the LPI end of year webcast. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We have invited our friends from OSU Extension, Family Community Health Program, and the College of Health to showcase how all of us are working together around nutrition and healthy living. We all work collaboratively to improve the health outcomes for all. So I'm really glad to see all of you here and look forward to your questions a little bit later. But for right now, I'm going to turn over to today's moderator, Casey Farham.
Thank you, Emily. And like she said, welcome to the Linus Pauling Institute's end of the year webinar, Aging Well and Optimum Health, Micronutrients for Bone, Brain, and Immune Health. As Emily said, I am Casey Farham, and I am the Director of Alumni Relations for the College of Health and your moderator today. Today's LPI webcast is in collaboration with the College of Health and the OSU Extension Service. Today, we are taking a deeper dive into vitamins and minerals that support bone, brain, and immune health, along with sharing some tips on incorporating the top 10 micronutrient-rich foods into your daily life, plus much more. Today's featured panelists are Dr. Emily Ho and Dr. Dusti Linnell. Before I give a full introduction to both panelists, I'd like to remind you, our viewer, that if you look now at the bottom of your screen, you will find a Q&A button. You are welcome to type questions throughout the webcast, and our panelists will answer as many questions live, along with the questions we received with the registration period, as time allows. Dr. Dusti Linnell is an associate professor of practice with the College of Health and the OSU Extension Services Family and Community Health Program. Dusti works with community organizations to translate public health and nutrition research into practice. Located in Tillamook, Oregon, she serves the communities on the Oregon coast, where she teaches courses and works on community projects that promote healthy eating patterns and physical activity and improve food security. She also conducts applied research to identify strategies to support dietary health. Dr. Linnell received her PhD in nutritional biology from the University of California, Davis. Dr. Emily Ho is the director of the Linus Pauling Institute and is a distinguished professor in the College of Health. Her research focuses on understanding the mechanisms by which nutrient status and healthy foods affect the initiation and/or progression of chronic diseases such as cancer. Her work has helped drive dietary requirements and recommendations for micronutrients such as zinc for communities with susceptibility to poor nutrition. Prior to becoming the director of the Linus Pauling Institute, she was the endowed director of the Moore Family Center for Whole Grain Foods, Nutrition, and Prevention. Dr. Ho obtained her doctorate in nutritional sciences at The Ohio State University. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to turn over this program to Drs. Emily Ho and Dusti Linnell. I'll see you for the Q&A section.
Thank you, Casey. So it's so nice to be here with you all for our annual end of year webinar. It's really hard to believe we're already almost at the end of 2024. But anyway, as mentioned, we're doing things a little bit differently today. Today's webinar, we'll talk a little bit about the science because, I can't stop myself from that. But we really want to focus more on some of the resources and application of how to live better, longer through nutrition and these micronutrients. This is going to include some of the resources from our top 10 micronutrients for aging well project that I talked a little bit about earlier this year, and some new resources are there as well as additional resources from our friends in the College of Health and OSU Extension with Dr. Linnell. And we also want to make sure that we have lots of time for questions. So just to get us started, so we know more than ever in our history, our nation's health has really become one of our highest priorities. And at the Linus Pauling Institute and the College of Health, we realize we need to be proactive rather than reactive in our health. We also know that in less than 10 years, the number of older adults is projected to increase by almost 18 million people. That means in a fairly short time period, by 2030, the number of older adults will outnumber children for the first time in our nation's history. And this, we call this the aging tsunami, and it has a potential to really overwhelm our healthcare system. So all these chronic diseases can potentially skyrocket. So we really need to be more proactive. When we think about healthspan, though, so this has been a concept that Dr. Pauling has advocated for many, many, many decades. He was really well ahead of his time in terms of thinking that we're not about just living longer. It's about how do we live better longer. And some of that is staying disease-free, but some of that is also looking at how to optimize some of our systems. So today we're going to talk about how do we, create resilience in terms of your bone health, your immune health, and also in your brain health. So it's not just stopping disease per se, but it's keeping those systems working optimally. And we strongly believe that what you eat and our nutrition is going to play a big role in improving this health span. So we've talked about this before. We know that too many calories is definitely a big issue in terms of health. But what we want to focus on is the quality of your diet. And it's very clear that the quality of your diet also is extremely important. The USDA has developed this index called the Healthy Eating Index that is a little bit of a measure of this diet quality. And it's very clear that populations that consume a diet that has higher diet quality do better in terms of mortality and in health span. So something that we talk about a lot at the Institute is, how do we create this nutrient-rich diet? And what is a high-quality diet? A big part of the high-quality diet are these micronutrients that we've been talking a lot about. The vitamins and minerals that come from the foods that play a critical role in keeping our biological systems working properly. Even with a healthy diet, though, especially as we get older, there are some nutrients, some micronutrients in particular, that one is still prone to shortfalls. So at the Institute, we also recommend, just as insurance, to also take a daily multivitamin, multimineral. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in terms of which ones to focus on. So again, it's very clear that high-quality foods provide these vitamins and minerals. Unfortunately, in the U.S., we're not doing a great job in terms of consuming these high-quality diets. And as a result, there are many nutrients that our bodies need that we are prone to having these shortfalls, even with perceived consuming a healthy diet. So what we've done at the Institute, and this is something that we launched earlier this year, there are additional webinars and resources on our website, but we've developed this resource called Top 10 Micronutrients for Aging Well. So within this resource, we have highlighted kind of the top 10 nutrients that you really want to make sure you pay close attention to. So when you're looking at a multivitamin, for example, you want to make sure that your multivitamin has these top 10 micronutrients in it at as close to the daily value that you can. And in particular, there are a few of these micronutrients that, especially as you get older, that you want to pay even closer attention to. And in some cases, you may want to ensure that you're consuming more foods that have high content of these micronutrients, or in some cases may look at additional supplementation as well as you get older. This is a copy of the brochure. Again, you can find this online. This is how it's set up in terms of outlining. I know this is hard to see, but it has all the top 10 micronutrients, where it's found in terms of foods, and then on the right, there are icons to indicate kind of what biological processes and what systems each of those nutrients play a role in. One thing that we just put live on the website yesterday is we have some additional resources that dive in a little bit deeper into some of these specific areas, including bone health, brain health, and immune health. So here is an example of the new brochures that are available. This is the one on bone health, and it's a two-sided figure. You can see on the first page, it lists the micronutrients that are key and some of the processes that are involved in maintaining good, in this case, bone health. You'll also notice there are the top 10 micronutrients in each of these brochures, as well as a few other non-top 10 that are kind of more specific to this, in this case, bone health. And then on the second page, what we have are common foods that you can consume that are rich in these micronutrients that are going to be beneficial for your bone health. Just diving a little bit deeper, just blowing up some of the items on the left side. So when we think about our bone health, and this is going to be true for brain health, for immune health, there are many components that come together in terms of supporting your bone health. So we try to outline some of these processes and which micronutrients help those specific processes as well. So with bone health, on the upper left here, bone, let me see if I can get my laser pointer to work. Bone strength is a major component in terms of your bone health. A lot of us think about this as your bone density, but your bone density, so your bones are actually a living tissue that are constantly being built and built up and built down in a dynamic fashion. So it's a very not static process. And there's a lot of things that go into depositing the minerals into your bone that create some of that bone strength. Calcium is probably what you mostly think about in terms of your bone strength, but your bone density actually has many factors that contribute to that. And that's what this big bubble talks about. So there are minerals that contribute to that bone mineral density and that bone mass. The complex that makes up your bones is a compound called hydroxyapatite, which is a complex of calcium, phosphorus, and there are enzymes and or hormones like vitamin D that help place those minerals into that complex. Vitamin K is another mineral or another vitamin that also helps place calcium into those complexes as well. So again, it's a very dynamic process. There are other biological processes, though, that also impact your bone health as well, including antioxidant function, anti-inflammatory function as well. And then you also can't forget that your bones do play a big role in other processes as well. So your musculoskeletal system, your bones and your muscles kind of work together in terms of maintaining things like your balance and your mobility. It also contributes to things like your oral health and your electrolyte balance as well. So we've tried to outline some of the specific nutrients and micronutrients that contribute to each of these processes. Switching gears, another area that's been a lot of interest, both to the Institute and the public, is the impact on brain health. I talked about this at our last webinar, but there's a study that just came out earlier this year looking at multivitamin, multimineral supplementation. Just a simple over-the-counter multivitamin and its impact on aspects of brain health. And the bottom line is that the study showed that just simply taking this multivitamin helped improve things like global cognition and memory in older adults. So again, very simple thing that you could do to help maintain adequacy in these key micronutrients. Could be just taking a multivitamin in addition to consuming a nutrient-rich diet. So the resource that we've developed is this Nutrition for Brain Health, and again has the same structure in terms of specific micronutrients affecting various processes that are important in terms of maintaining your brain health. And then on the back side of the page, again, various foods that are good sources of some of these nutrients. Again, similar to the bone health, you'll notice that there are the top 10 micronutrients that have been discussed in the parent brochure, but there are also some nutrients that are specific to brain health that are not a part of the top 10 that one may want to look at in terms of supporting brain health as well. Again, just blowing up the left side in terms of some of the aspects that contribute to positive brain health include metabolism, the neurotransmitters, brain cell repair. So you can see there's different nutrients that contribute to each of these. You'll also notice things like antioxidant function, anti-inflammatory function, or that we talked about in bone health, and we'll also talk about in immune health, are common in terms of key biological mechanisms that help support the brain as well. Memory support is another component that we highlight in terms of specific micronutrients in our top 10, and then a few that aren't in our top 10, such as choline and omega-3 fatty acids from things like fatty fish that are also important in terms of brain health. The third new resource is supporting immunity. So we clearly know that as we get older, our immune systems start to become compromised. And it's kind of a double whammy in terms of there's some aspects of your immune system that starts to decline, and then some aspects of your immune system that become overactive. That results in things like increased susceptibility to infection, reduced vaccine efficacy in terms of a dampening of your immunity. But then there is enhanced chronic inflammation, so an overactivity associated with your immune system that results in chronic inflammation that can propagate oxidative stress and other dysfunction that can lead to other problems in terms of damage and further reduction of systems relative to immune function. At the Linus Pauling Institute, we've done, again, some multivitamin, multimineral work with just looking at older adults, supplementing them with a multivitamin and looking at immune parameters. The bottom line is, again, just simply taking a multivitamin appears to help decrease incidence of infections in a population as well. So again, very easy thing to do in terms of insurance policy to make sure that your brain, bone, and your immune systems are optimally functioning by eating a healthy diet and then also looking at taking a multivitamin, multimineral. Our immune health brochure is, again, pretty similar, where we have that same structure in terms of components that contribute to our immune health and then complementary foods as well. So our immune system, similar to our brain and our bones, are also a highly dynamic system. There are many different components. There are our immune cells, so things like our T cells, our B cells that help with aspects of our innate and adaptive immunity. And then there's also just physical barrier functions, so things like our mucus layers that line our lung and our GI tract that act as physical barriers to infective agents are also extremely important. So there's a listing of nutrients that help support each of those things. And then again, the common theme of antioxidant function, anti-inflammatory function also play a key role in maintaining a healthy immune system, and then micronutrients that help support those things as well. We also have, in terms of immune health, nutrients that support wound healing specifically as well, which again is a highly dynamic process. So you'll notice in each of these three processes, there are some commonalities of nutrients that support all of them, and there's some specific nutrients that target immune system versus bone versus brain a little bit more concertedly. So I encourage you to look at our website in terms of looking at the specifics of these resources that are now available. Again, in terms of what you can do to support your optimal health, support your brain, support your bones, support your immune system, support your body in general, it's really look at how you can create this nutrient-rich diet that has high availability of these micronutrients. And in general, the average person in the U.S. is not doing that well in terms of consuming a high nutrient-dense, high healthy eating index scored diet. So this slide just shows in terms of average intakes, where the top teal bubble is the recommended intake for things like colorful vegetables and whole grains. And you can see both young and older individuals in general in the US are not meeting the mark. They're well below in terms of the recommended intake levels in purple for a lot of these things. Whole grains are another area where we are not doing a great job with. We're consuming refined grains in lieu of the more nutrient-dense whole grains. So finding these foods and incorporating these high-density, high nutrient-dense foods is going to be extremely important. I'm going to ask my colleague, Dr. Linnell, to come on, and she is an amazing resource and is going to talk to you more about how do we incorporate these nutrient-rich foods into our diet in an easy way.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. I'm just really excited to be here with you today to share several examples of how you can integrate all of these top 10 micronutrients that are delicious and support high quality diet. So in the OSU Extension Family and Community Health Program, we provide nutrition education to help Oregonians thrive. And as part of our work, we have a program called Food Hero. This includes monthly newsletters with lots of nutrition information. Each of our newsletter highlights a specific food with tips for cooking and for storage, as well as lots of recipes. We actually have more than 500 recipes that we've put on our website for you to use and enjoy. And I want to point out here the QR code and the website for foodhero.org. Let's go on to the next slide where I have the first recipe I want to share with you today. This is a fish stew, and I'm really excited about this because this was a collaboration between our Food Hero team and our OSU Extension Sea Grant team. And our goal was to have recipes that feature Oregon's wonderful seafood. This stew combines fish with vegetables like potatoes, bell peppers, and carrots. And this is a great recipe because you can sort of mix and match and use whatever fish you enjoy. So pointing back to the micronutrients that this recipe features, fish is rich in B6 and B12. But also, if you use salmon in this recipe, it's going to provide vitamin D. And the veggies like bell pepper and carrots contain lots of vitamin C. So all of these are supporting brain, bone, and immune health. All right, let's go on to the next recipe. So I love this recipe. This is a salad that's made with Brussels sprouts, cranberries, and bulgur. This is a perfect recipe for the winter season when our Brussels sprouts are at their peak. The season for Brussels sprouts is usually about September to March, and so they're really great right now. I also love how this recipe is really festive with those beautiful colors and especially those red cranberries that stand out. So the nutrients that this provides, it has lots of nutrients, but the ones I want to highlight here are vitamin C and magnesium. Brussels sprouts and cranberries are both high in vitamin C. And then there's bulgur, which is a whole grain, and it's a great source of magnesium. So once again, a great recipe for supporting bone, brain, and immune health. Let's go on to the next. This is a recipe that features almonds. So as you look at the top 10 micronutrients brochure, you'll see that nuts are a great source of vitamin E as well as calcium and magnesium. Almonds are great toppings for many different things. They add flavor and they add crunch. And this recipe combines rice, almond milk, and roasted almonds in a wonderful rice pudding. This is really great for breakfast or dessert. All right, next recipe. This one is chili. I'm a huge fan of chili, especially on these cold winter nights. And this is a recipe that has lots of micronutrients as well to help with healthy aging. Whether you're using ground beef or turkey, meat and poultry is rich in B6 and B12. And then we have tomatoes and peppers and chili that provide lots of vitamin C. So this is a great nutrient-rich recipe to try if you haven't had it. All right, moving on to the next. I'm really excited about this recipe in particular. We just shared this recipe as part of our current Food Hero Monthly for December. I'm also excited about it because this is a particular favorite of mine for the holidays. In my family, it's a tradition to enjoy black-eyed peas on New Year's Day. Black-eyed peas are a symbol of luck. And so we are featuring this recipe of black-eyed peas and greens. You'll see here, there's several of the top 10 micronutrients here. There's the zinc in black-eyed peas, and then in the collard greens have lots of vitamin E and vitamin K. So this is a great recipe for you to try in the new year to boost brain, bone, and immune health in 2025. All right, and the next recipe is going to be our broccoli and cheddar soup. Look at all those amazing nutrients that this has in it. This is really one of my favorite comfort foods, and it contains lots of broccoli. Broccoli is rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And the dairy in this recipe from the milk and the cheese contributes to B12, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, and zinc. So really great example of how you can combine several of these foods into a really tasty dish that's going to get us to those high quality foods that'll support us as we age. All right, moving on to the next. This is our salmon and wild rice with carrots and sweet potatoes recipe. I think this is just gorgeous looking at that photo. This is one that features a lot of the top 10 micronutrients. One of my favorite things about this is it has wild rice, and this is a whole grain that provides lots of magnesium, important for bone health. We also have salmon in this that provides vitamins B6, B12, and vitamin D, as well as potassium. And we also have these gorgeous orange vegetables, including sweet potatoes and carrots. And sweet potatoes are also a great source of potassium. So once again, this is another example of a meal that's just packed with all of these great nutrients that will support healthy aging. So this is the last recipe I'm going to be sharing with you today. So there's so many of these available through foodhero.org. But what I'm really hoping you get from this is that there's a wide variety of foods that are rich in the top 10 micronutrients. And I want to share that key way to ensure that you're getting the nutrients you need is to make sure you're getting a variety of foods. eating lean protein, integrating whole grains like bulgur, wild rice, and brown rice, and then look for lots of colorful vegetables, especially those are red, orange, yellow, and leafy greens. And make sure to consume those calcium-rich foods either through dairy or those that are fortified. So before I wrap up, there are these resources I want to share with you. There's two of them. This one here that you're seeing is the Food Hero for Older Adults resource. And this was specifically developed for healthy aging. These newsletters include a range of different topics that you see on the left-hand side there that include physical activity as well as nutrition. And these resources were designed for older adults, caregivers who are caring for older adults, as well as professionals who might be working with older adults. This particular example is our B12 newsletter, and it features a lot of tips for integrating B12 as well as some recipes. So if you want to read more, make sure to go visit us at foodhero.org. Okay, moving on. I have one more example for you of our Food Hero for Older Adults newsletter. This one is about calcium and vitamin D, highlighting the things that Emily has shared with us already. You can see that this contains information about the different sources of calcium and vitamin D. And then we also provide another delicious recipe that has vitamin D in these salmon patties with tartar sauce. Okay, last one, I think. This resource I'm really excited to share with you. We put together a publication because we wanted to help summarize the research on all the different factors that affect us as we age. This is available through our extension catalog. You can go and visit our website there at extension.oregonstate.edu/catalog, and you'll find that there. So we really hope that this will be useful for folks who are interested in learning more about the things that impact our nutritional health as we age. All right, I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn that back to Emily.
Thanks, Dusti. Before we open up for questions, I just want to make sure that we acknowledge, what a big team effort. All these resources, well, specifically the Top 10 project. Want to big shout out to Dr. Victoria Drake, Dr. Alex Michaels, and Dusti, who really were the thought leaders in terms of developing the content. We also had a whole army of reviewers, people that added to the content as well. I want to highlight many of them are either former alums of the Linus Pauling Institute or the nutrition program in the College of Health as well. And in some cases, they are also current students in the nutrition dietetics program as well. Also just acknowledging our funding, our foundation, and also Haleon. And again, just the amazing partnership between the Institute, Extension, and the College of Health to really make all of this happen. I'll invite Casey back to help with the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Dusti. That was absolutely incredible. Dusti, I love all those recipes available at the Food Hero website. That's fantastic. It's soups and stews season when we're recording this. This is great. So we are about ready to move into the Q&A portion of the webcast. As a reminder, if you do have a question for our speaker, if you haven't already, please type it now using the Q&A button in Zoom. While we're on the topic of questions, I like to emphasize that we will not be discussing some certain topics, including anything that could be considered medical advice or recommendations for brand name products. We're also going to stay within the themes of Dr. Ho's and Dr. Linnell's presentation today. So please understand if I don't ask some questions that deviate from today's topic, that's the reason why. We have lots of questions from the registration period, already lots of questions from you. We're going to get to as many as we can. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Dr. Ho, one of the things that came in from the registration period, I think, is really good as a general question for our audience today. How can bone be strengthened and rebuilt in one's 70s and beyond?
No, that's a great question. As I mentioned, our bone health is a really dynamic process. And when we're young, the building exceeds the breaking down, but there's always a building and breaking down throughout our entire life. And as we get older, the breaking down starts to exceed the building, which results in that loss. But there's definitely things that you can do, even when you're on that slope of bone loss, to help either slow down that bone loss or in some cases even gain. A lot of that is ensuring you are getting those micronutrients like calcium, vitamin D, vitamin K that we've outlined. So consuming a healthy diet, making sure you're getting, again, calcium and vitamin D as well. One thing to note is that a lot of the multivitamins, for example, don't necessarily have the daily value for calcium. So you want to make sure, especially either through foods or perhaps through supplements, that you're getting enough calcium. The current recommendation is between 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium. You could get that from 3 to 4 cups of milk. If you're not drinking that, or if you have lactose intolerant like myself, or you may not be consuming as many dairy products, there's other foods, especially other fortified foods like soy milk, that you can get that calcium as well. And there's vegetables that you can get that calcium, or you may want to look at supplements. You want to make sure you're not getting too much, though. The other big piece, though, is there's lots of things outside your nutrition that are going to be important for your bone health as well. Specifically, strength, weight-bearing exercise as well. I may punt a little bit to Dr. Linnell. OSU Extension has an amazing program called the Better Bones and Balance program that specifically, I know here at Oregon State, we've got exercise classes in this Better Bones and Balance protocol, but I'll let Dusti talk a little bit more about it.
Thanks. Yeah, we do have a few programs that help with physical activity, specifically thinking about older adulthood and the kinds of things that are needed that might be a little bit different from different life stages. So the Better Bones and Balance, as Dr. Ho pointed out, is a great example of that features a lot of strength training, weight-bearing exercise that help us build up our bones. And then we also have another program that's called Walk with Ease that is wonderful, getting people out walking. And then we also have a Strong People program. That's another great way for people to build their strength and help support their bones. So we offer these programs across the state of Oregon. Look for your local extension service to see if we offer those programs in your area.
Let's go ahead and stay on the topic of bone health. We had a question again during the registration period. Someone was really interested in what can be done for bone health after menopause. Can diet and micronutrients improve bone density?
Similar theme to our previous question. So one of the issues post-menopause is the estrogen loss. So I kind of talked about your bones constantly dynamic, building, breaking down throughout your lifespan. As you, in your 20s, you reach peak bone mass where it's kind of equal. And then after that, you start to have the net loss starts to be a little bit higher than the building. For women, when they become menopausal and lose that estrogen, there is an acceleration in terms of the bone loss as well. So there has been a lot of controversy in terms of hormone replacement therapy. But the bottom line is absolutely the micronutrients, the exercise are key components in terms of minimizing that slope of rapid loss, even with the loss of estrogen.
You mentioned the effects of multivitamins on cognition and immunity. Does taking a multivitamin help support bone health in that way?
Absolutely. There are, as I kind of went through there's commonalities in terms of biological mechanisms that our micronutrients support that are common to our brain, our immune system, and our bones as well. So there is absolutely evidence in terms of these multivitamins affecting bone. Again, one of the issues is even at the Linus Pauling Institute, the vitamin D level, for example, that we recommend is often a little bit higher than what you would find in a traditional multivitamin to get that 1,000, 2,000 international units. So that may be one that you want to make sure you're getting additional food, or perhaps look at a standalone supplement, especially here in Oregon.
Let's talk a little bit about brain health and cognitive function. What is just one thing that an individual can do to really help with brain health? And Emily, if you've got more than one, I'm always happy to hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to say there are three things and they're fairly generic, and these are recommendations from the National Institute of Aging as well. So one thing that we've already been talking about is eat a healthy diet. The other thing that we've also talked about is be physically active. But the third thing that's more specific to your brain is exercise your body, but also exercise your brain as well. So things like games, things, crossword puzzles, Wordle, Sudoku. But some of it is also to exercise your brain is just also changing your habits every once in a while as well. Switching things up a little bit is another great way to exercise your brain. And all those three things together are some of the best things you can do for your brain health.
One of the questions got from the chat in relation to the top 10 micronutrients for aging based, is it based on Western diet research and needs, or is it overall? They were kind of curious about that because they had concern with things like iron and iodine and vitamin A. Was that based on a Western diet, or is that more broad than that, Emily?
I would say it is more broad, but at the same time, we are not tackling, worldwide, especially I would say it's probably more broad to developed countries. And we're thinking about developing countries where there are specific micronutrients related to malnutrition that are more prevalent, like iron and iodide. Here in the U.S., because we iodize our salts, iodine deficiency is not as prevalent as, say, in sub-Saharan Africa, where iodine deficiency is a public health concern because of the lack of iodine. So yes and no, it is. Those are all the micronutrients that we would recommend for healthy aging around the world, but acknowledging, especially in some of these developing countries, there are additional micronutrients that are of high interest that aren't as prevalent in a developed country like the U.S.
We've been getting a lot of different questions, both from the registration period and in the chat, related to specific types of diet. Veganism, vegetarianism, those that are lactose intolerant, really trying to get the necessary micronutrients. We can start with veganism, Emily, but really anything that you want to expand on the challenges about getting those top 10 micronutrients and what people can do. What do you really recommend?
I'm happy if Dr. Linnell wants to jump in here as well, but maybe I'll start off. So if you are on an exclusively plant-based diet, there are some micronutrients that are going to be tougher to get because the animal source is just a more bioavailable or rich source. So some candidate micronutrients that are in our top 10 include B12, which is much more rich in animal sources, and is one that we want to pay close attention to, especially as we get older, because of age-related GI issues. B12 is one that we tend, as we get older, not to absorb as well. So that's one that, if you're vegan, especially if you're if you've been a vegetarian or vegan for a long time, one thing that's great about B12 is that it actually is stored quite well in your body. So it does take like a decade for you to deplete B12. So if you've recently become a vegetarian, your B12 status, you probably don't need to worry about. But if you've been a vegetarian for a decade plus, that you might want to pay a little bit more closer attention in terms of B12, either as a supplement. Nutritional yeast is another source of B12 as well. The other two nutrients that are a little bit more difficult for vegetarian or vegans to get because of bioavailability issues are iron and zinc. The plant-based form of iron is not as well absorbed as the heme-based iron that's found in animal products. And then same for zinc. Zinc absorption is actually not the problem, but the plant-based diets also tend to have another compound called phytate that can bind up minerals like zinc and make it less bioavailable. I know in terms of the research that I've done, if you're a vegetarian, so the daily recommendation for zinc is, if you're a male, 11 milligrams, female, 8 milligrams. If you're vegetarian, you might want to increase the intake by 50% to make sure that because your body will only absorb a portion of that. So you want to make sure you up your zinc intake by about 50% to make sure that you get enough.
I think the only thing I'll add here is just thinking about, what overall eating patterns look like, regardless of whether you're vegan or vegetarian or others, which is always eating a variety of foods. That's going to help you get the nutrients they need to support your health. So in addition to those specific concerns for vegetarians and vegans, doing the things as I described earlier, making sure to get lean proteins, enjoy lots of different types of vegetable and fruits, especially those that are red, orange, yellow, and our leafy greens, getting whole grains. Those are going to help get all the variety of nutrients. And one additional item for those folks who are vegan, who are need to find sources of B12, that cereals are fortified often with B12, and there are lots of other foods. So there's lots of food sources, and as well as considering supplementation if you need it.
Dusti, Emily, we're getting lost a lot of questions about how to really optimize, maximize nutrient supplement absorption. I know you've already talked about that a little bit, as well as the absorption of calcium, dairy milk versus other different types of ways. Can we address both of those things? Let's start off with just like maximizing your nutrient supplement absorption, then talk a little bit about the relationship with milk and calcium.
I'll jump in. I guess the broader question in terms of optimizing it really kind of depends on the nutrient of focus. There are some nutrients that will interact with each other, some proactively, some slightly antagonistically. Some nutrients are better on an empty stomach. Some are better not. Some are better with food. Some are better absorbed as the food source. But there are a few that are actually better absorbed as a supplement source as well. So it's hard to kind of categorize a generic blanket statement. I will talk specifically about calcium. So food-based calcium, i.e. from dairy products, has the highest bioavailability in terms of per milligram. The amount that gets into your body is going to be the most efficient. There are many other forms of calcium that are either in fortified foods or as a supplement. So none of those are as good as a glass of milk, I guess, in terms of absorption. But all of them are still pretty good. And I know there's a lot of questions in terms of the form of supplemental calcium to take. I will say that even the more expensive ones that claim significantly higher absorption are generally within less than 10% range. So it's not a massive change in absorption that you're getting from these supplements. One of the easiest calcium supplements I like to say for bang for your dollar are calcium carbonate, which are something that you'd find like in a Tums. as a calcium supplement per se. Like I said, pretty inexpensive. It's not as good as milk, and it's not as good as some of these other ones. But again, that range in terms of improvement is less than 10%. So if it's something that's easy and cost effective for you to do, it's not that much more of an advantage for these more expensive supplements.
Dusty, was there anything you wanted to add, or are you feeling pretty good about that?
I think I'll add something that's a little bit, it's related to this, which I know a lot of people often have questions about, which is how cooking affects how available some of these nutrients are. And kind of similarly to what Dr. Ho was describing, is there's so much variability among the different nutrients and how they're affected by cooking and how that makes that available to us. So the generic answer really is to make sure you're using a variety of cooking techniques, because there are some nutrients that are made more available when they're cooked longer. Some of our minerals are made more available, for example, whereas some of our other vitamins and nutrients degrade in long periods of cooking. And the reverse is true, where some of the minerals are less available when they're in their raw form, and some of the other nutrients, whereas some of the nutrients are better available in their raw form. So using a variety of cooking methods, consuming fresh foods as well as cooked foods in a variety of ways is going to get you the best nutrient availability overall. And it really varies nutrient by nutrient. So just generally, there's not a specifically one is better than the other. So hopefully that's helpful for people as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have someone who is allergic to fish and nuts and is really curious about the foods that they could find to replace the micronutrients they would normally get from those categories of food.
Well, I think, I'll point to the top 10 micronutrients brochure that we put together. As I shared in my presentation, these nutrients are available in lots of different sources. So, for example, if fish is not something that you can consume, if you're looking for something, let's say like vitamin D that's available in salmon, there are a few other sources like dairy products. Or fortified places where you can get that nutrient. B6 is another one. So meat and bananas and potatoes also has B6 in that. So taking a look at this brochure to give you some guidance on what are some of the other food sources, as well as the other brochures that Dr. Ho shared earlier, will give you some ideas.
I'm also really curious about another question that we had gotten from the chat about the science behind taking omega-3 supplements for brain health. What can you share with our audience about that?
Yeah, there's definitely a growing body of evidence in terms of the power of omega-3s, especially for their anti-inflammatory activity that appears to be very important in brain health. And other products as well. Again, kind of the food versus supplement is probably where a lot of the controversy lies. There's a lot of interest, for example, in the Mediterranean diet and its effects on brain health. The jury's still a little bit out. The omega-3s are a big component of the Mediterranean diet pattern. So some of the, again, controversy, is it a dietary pattern and a multitude of things that includes omega-3s, other polyphenols as well. That's the critical thing. I will say in terms of if you are turning to omega-3 supplements, to a common theme that we have at the LPI is, read your label. And I think that's common for the College of Health and any nutrition professional as well. The anti-inflammatory omega-3 is there's omega-3s are a mixture of various fatty acids. The one that has the most potent anti-inflammatory, though, is DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. So you want to look for a supplement that has quite a majority of the DHA rather than the EPA. Especially if you want the more potent anti-inflammatory activity.
We are running short on time, so I want to give one more question to each one of you. One thing you really want our audience to take away from each of your perspectives on today's webcast. And Emily, I'm going to start with you.
I would say, again, read your labels, take both for your foods and if you decide to take a multivitamin, multimineral. I do, again, advocate taking a multivitamin, multimineral as kind of a insurance policy, even with a healthy diet. I have a long nutrition background. I know what you should be doing. I don't always do it. So I do make sure I take a multivitamin on a daily basis to just keep my trajectory moving forward in terms of positive health.
For me, I would say the takeaway here is for the best nutritional quality and for health in older adulthood, variety is the key. So thinking about our 5 areas we can get nutrient-rich foods from, focusing on lean proteins, calcium-rich foods, eating a variety of vegetables, getting whole grains, and those are going to be the key things. Lots of variety over time.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time today. I want to thank Dr. Ho and Dr. Linnell for presenting and answering as many of our audience's questions as they can for this year's end-of-year lecture for the Linus Pauling Institute. As a reminder, each registrant will receive a link to today's webcast along with the slides in the coming days. Also, if you want, be sure to check out the Linus Pauling Institute's website for all the latest micronutrient research and content, including the top 10 micronutrients for aging well. Also, be sure to check out the OSU Extension's Family and Community Health site to catch up on how OSU is partnering with your community to promote healthy living, and also visit the College of Health's website to learn how OSU is working hard to improve health outcomes for all and produce graduates who are ready to tackle the health challenges that affect us all. If you enjoyed today's webcast and want to support the amazing research that takes place in support of Optimum Health at OSU, please visit these different various websites, lpi.pub/give to LPI for the Linus Pauling Institute, and to health.oregonstate.edu/giving for the College of Health, or to extension.oregonstate.edu/about/donate to donate to the family and community health programs for the OSU Extension Service. Your support really does go a long way here at Oregon State University, and we really, really appreciate it. Lastly, I want to mention, if you have any questions for the faculty and staff of the Linus Pauling Institute, you could email them at lpi@oregonstate.edu for any additional information on the Linus Pauling Institute. I know that Emily and Dusti and the rest of the folks towards the staff at the Linus Pauling Institute look forward to hosting you for the next webcast. I hope to see you down the road for the next webcast for the College of Health. Until then, have a very wonderful rest of your day and have a very safe and joyous holiday season. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.